Hello, everyone. This is Maria. It's been a few weeks, so I don't know. This is the first time I've had quiet in the house. My 5-year-old is gone, so I'm going to do my best to film a lot of videos. You will get me in the same dirty gray tank top. I don't know why it's dirty, but it is. I didn't have anything that color today. And I've actually been staying on top of the laundry. Anyway, side story. My husband is conducting an interview for his work upstairs in our room, so I cannot go up and change, and you'll just have to deal with this. So for me, shorter videos work because oftentimes for me, watching longer videos, as much as I'm appreciating people can do them, I can't allot that much time in one block anymore to stuff. The kids are always home. My husband is always home. It is rare for me to get that big block of a time. Anyway, so a few years ago, I did a series called Books That Made Me Who I Am. And I wanted to do kind of another series, but this one was shorter videos instead of one longer video, talking about books that changed how I viewed race. There are a lot of great book suggestions out there, reading lists galore on race everywhere that people should be looking at and reading, because several of the books on there are some of the best books that I've ever read in my life. But for me, one of the best parts about being a reader is that you get to be an active participant. You're not just picking up a book, looking at the words, and then never changing. That's pointless, in my opinion. I'm hoping people are actually reading these books and then, more importantly, taking those ideas and examining our own lives with a microscope and a magnifying glass, looking for where we have been wrong and how we can change and we can do better. So this is me doing kind of a confessional series of sorts. I will be highlighting lots of different books. We'll see how many I actually get through. I'll do my best, and then I will just post them probably all at once. I don't know. I'll see what I do. It all kind of started for me in 2015, 2016. I don't record everything on Goodreads, and so with dates, it is very difficult for me to see actually when everything started for me reading about race as a social justice issue. I grew up in a family, just background, a white family, except for my sister, who is from Guatemala. We adopted her when I was in elementary school, end of elementary school. And we always had exchange students going in and out of the house. We had foster kids going in and out of the house. My mom loves traveling. It's always been a very important part of our life to be hospitable. That said, I lived in inner city of Hammond for most of growing up, which is right next to Gary, Indiana, if you've heard of that. Very multicultural place. And I was homeschooled up until 4th grade, and then we went to public school in 5th grade. That was probably where I had the most exposure to people of different races. I had friends that were a lot of different races, so I never really considered myself racist because, you know, when you care about people or even have family members that are of a different race, you just kind of give yourself a little card saying, I'm not a racist. But looking back, there are all, little moments of things that were amiss. Like, I don't remember having any non-white teachers growing up after homeschool, obviously. I don't remember a lot of mentors being of a different race either. We had a lot of Latino stuff in our home just because my mom's also a Spanish teacher, so that's just kind of a part of being in our family. But when it comes to Black culture, other than my friends at school, I didn't really have much exposure. I didn't really think of it as something that I necessarily needed to do. Then I went to a boarding school for my junior and senior year of high school, which was in central Indiana, near where I live now, and was exposed to people who had grown up in other parts of Indiana that hadn't been around Black people or Latino people very rural parts of Indiana. I remember one of my roommates at one point saying like she remembers the first time she saw a Black person. She was, I think she said 3rd or 4th grade, and she was just like startled that was a thing. And I remember, watching TV shows like Family Matters and Will Smith, Fresh Prince, those kinds of things growing up. So it was just kind of weird to me to think of somebody being able to remember when they first encountered a Black person. We had, because of the school I went to, we did have some diverse reading. We still had white teachers, and I'm actually on an alumni member right now on a committee that's trying to fix that, because it's still a problem 20 years later at that high school. Change is slow, people. Anyway, so we did do readings by Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, Frederick Douglass, some of the more typical African-American writers, and getting exposed to some of those ideas that maybe I wouldn't have either other places. Of course, I remember reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which was pretty, standard fare, even though it's not by a Black person. And so I started thinking about some of those things. Went to college, got married, got busy with other life things. Did kind of slow down my reading a little bit, and then picked back up again when I started parenting. So in 2015, I had picked up I love going to the library and just perusing the stacks and grabbing stuff. And I saw Orange is the New Black, the book, this was before it was a TV series. And I picked up Orange is the New Black, and I remember reading it at home and hearing about some of the inmates, the female inmates that were not white, and how they were faring in jail, and the idea of people going into labor in jail. I had never thought about those kinds of things. I had never thought about some of the disadvantages that specifically Black and Latina inmates have. Just some of the circumstances, it just jarred me. And so I started kind of looking around more in the social justice section, thinking about those things. And I picked up Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy, which is still probably to this day one of the best books that I've ever read. And I remember picking it up thinking, I'm not a racist. I don't have racist ideas. I wonder what he's having to say about race and how people need to change. And he brought up a couple different stories that will always be in my mind. One where he was talking about how he was in his car, I think after a workout, waiting to go into his apartment, which he had just moved into, and people had kind of called him out as being a potential threat. And so he had been, questioned by a cop. And I was just like, and he's a lawyer and all that stuff. And I started thinking, as he asked these questions, when have I been intimidated or more alert because of somebody and their race? And I didn't have any great answers, but I had a gut feeling that I probably have been intimidated sometimes. And I don't know if that's that female like trigger, or like, oh, dangerous, there's a male nearby and it's dark, or if it was something different, especially since not being more inner city and around it as much anymore. The other instance that he talks about in his book was going to court in a suit, and a judge telling him, calling him out for being an inmate when he was in fact the lawyer, and just recognizing that it is often a easy assumption that when you see a man in the court system or the jail with a suit on, instead of guessing that he's the lawyer, you might guess that he's in there for a court date. And those tiny little things just clicked in my brain to start questioning when I was looking at somebody and assuming something about them because of their race. Apparently I had done it more than I thought I did. And that kind of was the first little domino in a long stream of dominoes that made me think about the overall system of race in our country. And so I'm really, really thankful. I actually this past year got to listen to The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton, who is he was an innocent man who was on death row for a very long time until Bryan Stevenson was able to get him off. His memoir of his time in prison and the system, the judiciary system, and how messed up it was. So that was kind of a nice bookend of that. Just being grateful that it wasn't just one book that got me thinking, but it was a long stream. So for that, Bryan Stevenson, I'm always, excited when I get to see him talk anywhere or share things, because he got me started on thinking about this stuff. So that's the first one, and I will see you in the next video.